Good morning, everybody. Please mute your microphones while not talking. We will soon start. We're still admitting some participants. So I think we can start. Still admitting some. Perfect. So, hello everyone. Welcome. I think we can start this webinar. My name is Cristina Garzillo, and I'm Senior Coordinator at ICLE, European Secretariat, and working specifically on culture and cultural heritage and the links with sustainable development. And today I am moderating this webinar on understanding, you can see it here from the title, the European value of cultural heritage, power of networks. And this is the second webinar of a very rich series of webinars that you can see here on the screen within the framework of the Be.Cultour project. Let me start by introducing a very distinguished group of online speakers before making a couple of remarks myself. And I'll follow exactly the order which is on our program. So I would like to welcome Jordi Malarraca. Is the Executive Officer at the Future for Religious Heritage, a non-faith, non-profit European network working to safeguard Europe's religious heritage sites. We have here, or she will join us a bit later, Snežka Quedvlich-Mihajlović. She is the Secretary General of Europa Nostra since 2000, and she regularly interacts and works with all EU institutions, the Council of Europe, UNESCO, and numerous bodies committed to cultural heritage. And she is also the regional co-chair of the Climate Heritage Network. We have with us also Gerald Wagenhofer. He has a master's degree in business administration. He is certified maintenance manager of cultural heritage, and he is master trainer of the European Heritage Academy. And he was also supporting the Burghauptmannschaft Österreich in running the European Heritage Label Network. We have with us our discussant. She is Yermina Stanoyev, a research and policy expert on cultural heritage, culture, and international cultural relations, an individual expert to the European Commission, an advisor on the role of cultural heritage in international cultural relations. And then we're very pleased to have with us representatives from the Be.Cultour project, and particularly the pilots. So we have with us Dr. Antonio Nicoletti, Director General of the Regional Agency for the Territorial Promotion of Basilicata in Italy, holding a PhD in Urban and Territorial Planning. And also we have with us Pauline Alexopoulou, a member of Larnaca and Famagusto District Development Agency in Cyprus. So welcome to all of you, and thanks a lot for being with us today. The webinar of today addresses the concept of Europeanization, which is based on the intertwine of cultural networks operating in Europe. So what is the added value? The questions that we pose are, what is the added value of being a member of a network? And how do we want to use networks to develop innovative solutions towards circular cultural tourism? And how can networks help us in understanding the value of cultural heritage? As I was saying before, this webinar is organized in the framework of the Be.Cultour project, which is a Horizon 2020 funded research led by CNR and stands for Beyond Cultural Tourism. So it expresses the goal to move beyond tourism, the tourism that we are used to know, through a longer-term, human-centered development perspective. So this means that people are at the heart of this, enhancing cultural heritage and landscape values. But of course, cultural tourism entails opportunities and also risks. And the community of practice in the Be.Cultour project that includes not only Basilicata in Italy and Larnaca in Cyprus that will speak today, but also Aragon, Teruel in Spain, Västra Götaland region in Sweden, Vojvodina in Serbia, and Northeast Romania and Moldova has cross-border regions. So the environmental, and they know this, they know about the challenges and about the risks. So the environmental, the social and the cultural crisis of today cannot be addressed by repeating the same patterns of overconsumption, social isolation and alienations. And this is what we're seeing in our project, that cultural tourism can become a great opportunity to stimulate local communities to become more innovative, entrepreneurial and collaborative, generating new sustainable jobs and enhancing the well-being, the human and ecological health. Now, in the context of the Be.Cultour project, we explored what cultural Europeanization means. And this was at the start a bit like a stranger in a pub coffee debate. If you try to explain it, it seems ungraspable. But it's a kind of genuine and reasonable complexity. Indeed, it is a much debated concept. What emerged was this strengthening a shared sense of European history, culture, and identity. So there is this need to increase the potential of cultural tourism in Europe as an opportunity also to learn about common European culture and history. So cultural tourism as a driver for Europeanization. Now, what I'm going to do is to invite each of the speakers to contribute for a maximum 10 minutes. And in the meanwhile, you can write your questions in the question and answers or chat box at the bottom of the screen, and we will take them in the second part of the webinar. And we will end up with the floor for comments as well. So I would like to introduce you to our first speaker of today, Jordi Malarach, Executive Officer for the Future of for Religious Heritage. And the Future for Religious Heritage works closely with EU policymakers and relevant cultural heritage stakeholders, sharing information and recommendations which regard the implementation of legislation and also promoting community engagement, sustainability, cultural preservation around the religious heritage. And this includes also finding creative ways of preserving historic places, including extended use or reuse to avoid, of course, demolishment or abandonment. So, Jordi, how do you think can religious heritage promote community engagement, sustainability, cultural preservation, innovation, and link people and communities? The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. Can you hear me well?
Perfectly.
Okay. Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Christina, for this wonderful introduction and for explaining very well what the FRH network stands for. And also hello to all the other Be.Cultour partners. Some of you we already know in person, so hello to everybody and welcome to all the participants. Yes, FRH is a European network that works to safeguard Europe's religious heritage sites. We have, of course, around 500,000 buildings in Europe. Many, there's churches, monasteries, and so on, but we also have lots of mosques and, of course, many synagogues. So all this religious heritage, we often have challenges when ensuring it continues for future generations, but there's also a lot of opportunities. So we try to focus on the opportunities, which is trying to get the wider community involved in how we use these spaces and how they can contribute the best added value for the communities around them. So one key thing to take in mind is that buildings are not just expensive museum pieces to maintain. Of course, it can cost millions of euros. So now we saw with Notre Dame when it burned down to restore, but it can also be a great asset. So one of our members involved with the Church of England in the UK, they did a report called the Church of Good, which was analyzing the socioeconomic impact around church buildings. So, of course, many of the buildings are some of the most touristic sites in each country. Even in rural areas, they're usually the catalyst for rural sustainable tourism. In many villages, it's the only, let's say, noteworthy site to visit in many remote areas. And so the economic impact of these sites is often undervalued or under-considered, and actually the numbers really spoke for themselves. So I recommend that you check out this Church of Good report. It shows how many jobs are linked to the sustaining the buildings, but not just that. When you attract visitors, you of course have the whole hospitality industry. You have people working to promote the buildings. Yeah, so it's a wide range of community actors that can benefit from these sites. Maybe I can quickly show my couple slides of the network. So as you were discussing the value of European networks, we see ourselves as just a tool for our members. So we have members in 35 countries across Europe, about 100 organizations, 200 professionals, ranging from academia to restoration of murals, to research of diaspora communities, to development of tourism practices around pilgrimage paths. So it's a wide range of members that come from many different sectors, but they all come together around their interest to how to best use this legacy from our history. These wonderful buildings, sometimes they're 1,000 years old. They're really a time capsule from the time they were built. They were built by people like us, so European citizens from many years ago. Some are still being built, of course, nowadays. And so they're really something to preserve. They're, in essence, the largest museum of Europe. Many have great works of art, etc. So how to bring all these people together to work on this? So if you're a small grassroots organization in Romania, for example, and of course there's this big barrier to reach the European institutions, to obtain funding for your projects, to speak to like-minded professionals and organizations on your concerns, want to share best practices, publish in academic journals, organize conferences, etc. That's where FRH comes in. So we facilitate this face-to-face exchange between people working in the sector across Europe through conferences, different events. Of course, then we can be the voice of the sector at the European level. So we're of course in the European Commission Expert Group on Cultural Heritage, the European Heritage Alliance, the European Reflection Group on Cultural Heritage, Climate Heritage Network, all the different forums we can be in. We're there to bring the voice of religious heritage to the European level. Then, of course, to promote religious heritage sites by raising awareness, helping exchange knowledge between the members. Okay, there we go. So yeah, benefits for members. It's in essence a professional network. So it's like most professional networks at the Brussels level. It's bringing people together so that they don't see this European level as this far away, let's say, talk shop where nothing gets done, but rather as something where they can obtain useful resources to then implement it where things really are happening, which is on the local level where our members work. Also to gain news on the religious heritage sector, to know what the latest developments are, not just EU policies and funding calls, but also what the general trends are in various countries, so they can learn from other experiences, and just to give visibility to our members and their initiatives. As I mentioned, we do different events for members. Conference, we'll have a conference now in April, 2021st of Lund, 2021st of April, sorry, in Lund, Sweden. So this one focuses on sustainability. The theme of the year is sustainability. Advocacy. FRH Talks, masterclasses. So some are for the general public, such as FRH Talks, where we touch upon various interesting topics in the field. And then masterclasses specifically for FRH members, where we go more in depth on topics that might interest different thematic groups of members. So for example, there was how to properly communicate in museums, or how to narrative approaches in this was more policy based. But then of course we have awareness raising campaign across Europe. One of the most significant and let's say successful ones has been the Run for Heritage. We started it last year during the European Year of Youth, and it continues this year and for the foreseeable future. A lot of our members are in contact with schools, and so this activity basically brings the children out of the school to discover their surroundings, discover the rich religious heritage sites around them, conduct activities in them, learn about them, and in general just learn to value what's around you. So this was especially successful in rural areas, as you mentioned, sustainable rural tourism. So this sustainable cultural rural tourism has really been shaped around a group of volunteers that emerged from so there was this one of our members is Open Churches, for example, and in rural areas of France they created a network of youth volunteers around these churches that help open the churches for visitors, so that they're not just a perpetually closed a building, but rather it's open for visitors to see. This made them be very proud of their village, proud of this amazing asset they have, and really learn about it. And so some of these became later on to become professional tour guides. Others have gone on to work in this field, and so it's helping revitalize these areas. So essentially the important thing is reach the youth, because if we don't reach the youth and school children age, it's over, because then the new generation will be completely disconnected from built tangible cultural heritage. So if we can get them to be involved and use it as an asset, then their generation can also benefit from it. We also launched this last year the Religious Heritage Innovator of the Year Awards, which FRH launched, which was meant to highlight examples of sustainable religious heritage sites around Europe and initiatives that are going on. So just to be quick, one initiative was an offshoot of the Camino de Santiago, the famous pilgrimage path, an offshoot which is a historic path that goes into Cantabria, more into the south, but also in the mountains area. So they had Wi-Fi spots that were solar powered throughout in different religious heritage buildings in an area with very difficult internet and telecommunication connections. sites. And so this was good for connectivity, and also it was in a way sustainable. However, the winner, of course, this year was Orgel Kids, which is an initiative, this top one, you can see the picture, of bringing small kits and showing children around the world, actually it's in 50 plus countries, how organs work and the importance of organs as a musical instrument. And of course, it's always been linked to religious heritage sites. So we thought that was a very interesting initiative. Then, of course, we have a photo competition every year that highlights the beauty of these sites. Revigiana, which is an online platform that promotes, you can have information of religious heritage sites across Europe on your phone, on your computer. And so it's to sort of, when you're in a city or in a town, you see what's around you and you can then visit it if you're interested. And so it's essentially what the network does. So a wide range of networking activities, advocacy activities, and awareness raising activities. So yeah, I would say that's the value of networks. That's what networks can do for the members. And yeah, I don't know if you have any specific question.
I specifically liked also the way how youth is brought very close to both to Europe and to the religious heritage site. So I like this combination, and in remote areas. You know that perhaps that one of the key innovation areas of Be.Cultour is this spiritual travel experience, which is related to religious heritage appreciation, and it includes also the pilgrimage routes, the spiritual retreats, and all these ways to promote the value of Europe's religious heritage. So thanks a lot for your contribution. I'm now having a look if Snezka arrived, but if not, I would like to kindly invite Gerald Wagenhofer, coordinator of the European Heritage Label Network. So we know that you were very busy in the last period with the increased final conference on innovative and creative solutions for culture. So thanks a lot for making the time for us. And the European Heritage Label. So this recognizes sites that have a kind of symbolic European value and have played quite a significant role in the history and the culture of Europe. So if I remember correctly, the current number of sites is 60, and there is this wish of expanding even further. So welcome, Gerald, and could you please explain a little bit why being a member of the European Heritage Label is important, and what is the impact, what are the benefits once you receive this label, what type of activities you get involved in? Yes, thank you. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will first share my screen for that. Thank you for the invitation. You're right, it was a busy week for me related to the other projects we're doing, but this is also part of being or working on European level. You have to talk about what you're doing, and it's always a vice versa topic. So I was happy to have the chance, even you received my feedback very late, but yeah, it is there and I'm there, so I can talk a little bit about that. I was, due to the fact you mentioned, I was focusing on the questions I found in the paper you sent to me. So maybe it's not 100% exactly the questions you're asking now, but I will try to cover that as well. Let me say, first of all, in the presentation or in the agenda, I was mentioned as the coordinator of the EHL network project. That's true. The project is, but it's over since last year in February. So we are beyond the project. So I have a little bit doubt about saying I am the coordinator. I was the coordinator, just to say that in a correct way.
Before and then.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, that's the reason why I'm representing here the Imperial Palace in Vienna, which is one of the label bureau, and we was driving this network in the past. You also mentioned why these these labels was awarded to some sites. They are, as you said, are important for the European history, or they have a significant contribution to the European coming together, the connection, the work together in the European Union. Yeah, the reason for having this or this label itself, it shows for us we have a common and a shared cultural heritage in Europe, and we represent the values in Europe. We also will make that visible, because that's the point. We should show why Europe is Europe like it is. It's the interesting story for us, because we are, due to that fact, very diverse. So we have very touristic used sites with a high touristic usage, like the Imperial Palace. We are talking about, there are no real statistics, there are only estimates. We talked here about 20 million visitors per year. They are going or visiting, as are going through the area and visiting the site, even that they don't know that they are here. That's another question, which was funny for the application for us. But also we have some sites, they will maybe never see one tourist in 1 year, like a graveyard in Poland, which shows the remembrance for a specific part of Europe and the part of time in history. But of course, there are totally different approaches here, and culture and culture tourism is for some yeah, it's clear that we have to talk about. For others, it's a topic which is a little bit far away, but it's still the question of being the member of and having this label is to work together to help each other, to support in raising awareness for significance of each side, more or less. That's, so I would say that's what I say about why it's important to being a member. Of course, we had this network project, and was what the impact. I would say it is more publicity for the several EHL sites, so that we help each other, because as I said, until the last round of label sites, the Burghauptmannschaft was the biggest organization in the background of all these sites. So we take over the lead to say there is a need to go forward, and we do it and help the other sites which maybe not have that structure in the background. And it helps also, I would say, most of the sites, even us a little bit, not alone about the significance of the EHL sites, but how we represent this European mindset, let me call it that, or the European sense. Because we had to sharpen our for instance, which value we are representing, and how we are representing this value. And some of the sites are maybe also have a little bit more self-esteem about being part of this network, or this network project. But if I put it on our side, it was interesting because we had the chance to initiate a kind of area development in the complex, because not all of visitors would know that the area is about 340,000 square meters, having 2,600 rooms and so on. So we are quite big. It's the biggest complex beside of the Vatican city of Vatican in Europe. So it's quite big, but still we have only separate parts. So it's a good idea, and it was a starting point for being more visible as in one piece. It helps us to start a process about the final governance, because due to the project we did here, or due to the label, we had to make sure that the Burghauptmann is the one who has the final governance, and we started a cooperation with all the users. And these are not small users. We have all the famous museums here with the Kunsthistorischen, the Naturhistorischen, the Albertina. So we had about I think in the area we have 16 separated museums, and around about 70 collections in that area. And it also shows and help us, or we are could show the interest in our European cultural heritage, but also our responsibility. As I said before, we are the biggest one, so we had to go forward and help the smaller ones in the group. What type of activities we did? Focus on our side by ourselves. I said the area development, guiding systems and such things which were related to the visibility of the site. Of course, we're also talking about use. There are different, let me say, successes in involving young people in our activities because of different structures, because we had, I think, 1/5 of our sites are in public, in main cities, and others in rural areas. We also have sites, as I said, by sites that they are different, but also we have sites, they are not open all the time. So here is the approach. The network is developing for all of our members. Something is not working because we were struggling with the diversity we had at the beginning. So we had to learn by ourselves how diverse we are. We started also to define or to develop merchandise projects for the network, for the EHL label. And what we also did was sharing knowledge and skills transferring from one place to the other, from one side to the other. You mentioned one of my other hats. It's the master trainer of the European Heritage Academy. The Burghauptmannschaft established an academy especially for training in the cultural heritage sector, mainly in the sector of built cultural heritage, how to take care for them and care and repair it. And we try to, of course, to transfer skills and knowledge in that area, but also for other topics, because we was discussing about how we integrate our sites in the regions. Because the point, and that's important for the touristic discussion here, or the discussion about tourism, because when we talk about sites and say we will do touristic offers for someone else, it maybe happen that we do it for ourselves and the region goes to different approach. So to be sustainable, to be resilient, we have to have an integration of this side in the region, and this is definitely not that where we are really strong at the moment. There is a lot to do for this point. I think I will stop here because that I almost said.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I liked also that you referred to values, so in plural. So this is important because we have many values in Europe, and thanks a lot also for highlighting challenges and a bit more on the Imperial Palace in Vienna, which I knew very little about. So thanks a lot.
We have to change that, by the way.
Okay.
No, just to support what you said about the values, we because the legal base for this network give us explicitly values we have to show. They are not the same as in the EU contract. So we had a little bit separation. So it was funny when we talked about that. But we all had, for the sites they were included in the project, we had to thought about which of these values we represent most, and then we have to explain why we do that. So that was a process which was very important for all the sites.
Yeah, thanks a lot. This is very clear. So thanks, Gerald. And now I would like to introduce you to our discussant. So Jermina Stanojev, research and policy expert on cultural heritage, culture and international cultural relations. Why do we need a discussant? Because putting no pressure is a responsible person for providing some kind of professional and constructive criticism and raising issues for a bit of a broader consideration. So, Jermina, you support the European Union in engaging international cultural relations within this framework of the EU strategy for international cultural relations. And what do you think is the importance of the networks on EU integration?
Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. I think it's actually great that I come after Jordi and Gerald, because Jordi has shown us a map of the sites and organizations that are belonging to his network. And then if Gerald would have shown us a map of sites that are falling under the European Heritage Label, we would see one big difference. And that is that the first network of the Future for Religious Heritage is actually European network, while the European Heritage Label is a network mainly, or not mainly, exclusively belonging to sites that are placed in the member states. So it's a network that is an EU network, basically. And actually, we have heard all these terms, the shared history, sense of belonging, values, and that's something that goes actually beyond EU borders, because also countries that are accessing to the EU and are belonging to the European continent are having and sharing these same values as countries in the EU. And actually, this is very important to distinguish. We also, even in the professional world, have often this discussion saying, okay, these are non-European countries, while people are thinking, actually, these are non-EU countries. And that's, it's not a matter of semantics, we have to say. I'm sorry, Brussels. So it's not a matter of semantic, but it's a matter of really understanding what is the common history, what are the shared values, what is the sense of belonging of all these European countries that are belonging to the also in toward the values to the EU community. And in that regard, networks are playing a crucial role. Though many EU countries are members of official programs, such as Horizon program, as we know, we have also partners in Be.Cultour who are not from the EU. Still, the very big number of them are not participating in these projects, so limitations are still there, in a way administrative, but also capacity wise. Therefore, these other networks that are existing, such as the Future for Religious Heritage and many other networks, Europa Nostra, etc., are playing a crucial role for all these institutions, for all these cultural heritage sites, for all their stakeholders to feel as part of the narrative, as part of the process, as part of the really continuing to develop these European values. And we do have different administrative ways also to do that, in terms of the European Commission has set different programs, like, for example,
EPA, for example.
Yes, exactly. Is the Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance is the official program as of the European Commission that is meant for non-EU countries that are accessing to the EU to actually, in a way, adjust their administrative systems or other systems in order to be able to one day join the EU. But this is not only administrative matter. It's really going through the process, working together with different EU partners and learning also their experience in regard to the EU processes. And then there are also some other ways that are engaging, for example, non-EU stakeholders with EU stakeholders, also in the field of culture and culture heritage. And for example, these EU macro-regional strategies has been important, for example, also for that. In a way, they are strategies that are putting together stakeholders from different EU and non-EU regions working toward common challenges. And also, in a way, they are making and enabling funds that are meant only for the EU countries, such as European structural funds, to work with stakeholders that are using Instrument for Pre-Accession Assistance, meaning non-EU stakeholders, under same programs. And that's extremely important because, for example, they can work under the Danube program or working on a specific challenge in the Balkan regions, etc.
They emphasize a coordination between the common challenges, let's say.
Exactly.
Geographic areas. But
exactly.
Serbia, for example, is a current beneficiary of the EPA, and it is also a partner in the Be.Cultour project. Do you have some insights to share?
Yes, so that's interesting. Experience, I think, for municipalities from Serbia, and indeed, Serbia is already beneficiary of instrument for pre-accession assistance for many years. And equally beneficiary of Horizon program, Horizon 2020, now Horizon Europe. But as I said, there is always this little gap it's not a written gap, but the institutions are not maybe that skilled or not equipped with capacities in different regards to participate in these programs. However, when it comes to, again, the shared history, the sense of belonging, the values, the jointness, their place is definitely there. So we had 3 municipalities that are working, that were working in Be.Cultour, still working. And then we have, for example, cases of Sremski Karlovci, of Bač, Irig, that are equally actually contributing to the European history in terms of being seats of being a seat of a church, or in different historical and geopolitical contexts. They are very important for the European history, but not necessarily for the EU, the way it has been brought together now, the way we see it today. So these experiences are really priceless for and beneficiary for countries that are accessing to the EU. But I would say that this experience is mutually beneficial, because also countries and stakeholders that are sometimes taking their EU positioning for granted, they get to learn more about these processes. They get to learn more about countries that are actually coming to the EU, but also to learn more beyond the EU borders and the values that all these environments are bringing. And basically, that is the power of networks. And we also always talk these days about global challenges. Global challenges are actually, they don't recognize borders. So we have to address them together. And when it comes to European challenges, we have to address them with all European countries, not only those who are belonging to certain frameworks. And that's particularly interesting when it comes to tourism, when it comes to climate change in particular, brain drain, migration, etc. Everything that is that we are facing nowadays. So basically, this approach of networks, formal and informal, is crucial to be able to tackle these challenges properly.
Thanks a lot, Jeremia, for making us think really beyond these borders. Sometimes we have an inward looking approach. So thanks a lot. I think this was important to open up our minds. And I would like now to welcome, I think she's here, Snežka Perlik-Mihajlović, Secretary General of Europa Nostra and also European co-chair of the Climate Heritage Network. Europa Nostra is the European movement and network protecting and advocating for cultural and natural heritage. You promote best practices in the heritage field. You campaign to save Europe's most endangered sites among the various activities. So welcome, Snežka. How you think that cultural heritage can be an opportunity to learn more about European culture, history, and values, we were saying? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christina. Do you hear me? Do you see me? All works well. Now, Christina, thank you so much for inviting me to join this important webinar. Glad to be in the company of my dear colleagues from other networks, but somehow we are all connected. We are all the embodiment of the topic of this webinar, the power of networks. And by the way, we have seen each other 2 days ago in Brussels, Christina and Jeremia, and so we had a meeting of representatives of the European Heritage Alliance and also the European Commission Expert Heritage. It's all about the power of networks and about connection, building bridges. And somehow this is the motto of my life, the mission of my life. For more than 30 years, I have dedicated to Europa Nostra, and not just Europa Nostra, as I said, and the European Heritage Alliance, the Climate Heritage Network, and last but not least, the latest, so the newcomer in the family, and that is the new European Heritage Hub. And I'm delighted they play. And Christina, you are also part of that new project. I'll say more a little bit later, but it's important to say, because you have had a conversation now on Yermina, who insisted on the importance of Europe as a whole, that there are also parts of Europe that are not members of the European Union. And speaking to you from Belgrade, from Serbia, so from outside of the European Union, but very much from Europe, and the place that sort of even more needs to use cultural heritage as part of the whole entire strategy, both of the European Union and the Western Balkan countries, to come closer together. And that is the answer. And yeah, last night, in fact, I also here had a very interesting panel discussion organized by the Goethe Institute in Belgrade. And it was connecting the world of history teachers, people working with history. And then I was the voice of heritage to say, indeed, that it is the sort of underused somehow resource for the promotion of the much needed sense of togetherness and the much needed, I would say, consciousness of citizens in Europe, within the EU and outside of the EU, that cultural heritage is something that we share. It's not something that divides us. On the contrary, it's something that connects us. And why it connects us? Because our history connects us. And our heritage is the embodiment of that history. And history with its dark pages, but fortunately, not only dark pages. And that was my message last night. There is a tendency to speak when you speak about history, we speak only about wars and about conflicts and about how terrible it was all. But if we did not have our cultural history, which is, if you look throughout the centuries, it was the artists, it was the scientists, it was the people of the spirit, people of all discipline, the writers, the musicians. They didn't wait for the European Union to cross the borders and sort of have a collaboration. And that is precisely all that is embedded in our cultural heritage sites. And in particular, of course, the European Heritage Label sites, they are precisely telling us that story. But it's not only in the European Heritage Label sites. In every single heritage site, there is a European story. And I think this is something, the organization with the name Europa Nostra, our Europe, that precisely reflects that it's not just the sum of national heritage, which for many years, of course, the concept of heritage was very much a national one. But as we are building Europe, we also have to sort of transform the notion of heritage and accept that there are multiple layers. First of all, in our identity. I can be proud citizen of Belgrade, because that's where I was born, but equally citizen of The Hague and Brussels, where I'm now living and working, and Serb and Dutch and European. We have it all in ourselves. It's not a choice, one or the other. It's all of it somehow enriching each other. And this is, I think, an extremely important task for all of us who are engaged in heritage field. And who are engaged in networks, because network is about building bridges. We even more can be the voice of this the European perspectiveness and perspective towards cultural heritage. And this is something that for 60 years, this year we celebrate our 60th anniversary. And so we will be in Belgrade, and that's why I'm here. We're also organizing an event. I hope that perhaps some of you, Yermina, I hope that you will be with us in Belgrade in May, and then in Venice, where we will also bring, hopefully, the whole European Heritage Alliance and the European Heritage Hub. So really I apologize if I look a little bit too passionate about it, but I have lived it for 30 years. I mean, I've lived it. I've been building networks for 30 years, and I can assure you, it works. It works, and it's always an added value, because you, in different ways, Europa Nostra, we have our award scheme. So how much inspiration you can get from meeting people who have done something extraordinary, often in very difficult circumstances, and yet they've done it. So it's, you give somehow collectively a feeling, yes, we can do it. Because when you are alone and facing a difficult problem, you might say, oh, we can't do it. But then when you are in a bigger group with sharing the objectives, and you can hear about and learn and connect and sort of get the support, solidarity from other parts of Europe and beyond, you feel less alone, you feel empowered, and the power, you feel empowered, and you go on, and you succeed. Most of the time you succeed. So there are so many examples, and I hope that people who are attending this meeting will go and visit our sites and get inspiration from these award winners. But then from our members, we started with a dozen of organizations 60 years ago, and now there is 240 member organizations, more than 100 associated organized cities. That's something ICLEI is about, local governments for sustainability. We really hope that in the future we will be working much more closely with cities, because when we talk about European dimension of cultural heritage, somehow we feel that cities probably are more comfortable with that, because cities are very proud to say, oh, we are a European city. While the governments in Europe, they're a little bit more nervous about letting go parts of their national sovereignty in order to give it and to sort of give it to Europe, which is not giving it to Europe. It's just recognizing that Europe is not somewhere else outside. It is part of us, and we are part of Europe. So cities working with cities, and that will be a very important focus on this new project, the European Heritage Hub. So we will not be networking, we will be hubbing. We will be with ICLEI, with Eurocities, with Europeana, and also the academic world. Yarmina will be part of it with the KU Leuven and their network of universities. It's all about building bridges and making sort of an impact. I always say where we are fragmented, we are weaker. And we would never be stronger if everyone works separately. And if we all realize that we're not losing by gaining in engaging in networks and coming closer together, I always say we are a superpower. Definitely. The heritage is not something peripheral. It's something so fundamental to the society, for the living environment, and even is a strategic resource for climate action. And that's ICLEI. It's all about sustainability, about the climate action, and this is something that also with Climate Heritage Network that Europa Nostra is proud to be a regional co-chair, and with ICLEI we have been sort of raising awareness with international and national, and all authorities at all levels, that heritage is not just threatened by climate change. It is also part of the solution. It's a resource that brings solution to, and it's part of the climate action. But we also need, they should realize, but also we should realize, people who are working in cultural heritage field should realize that we are part of the environmental green movement. We are not something separate. We are part of it, we are in the heart of it, and we are not sufficiently aware of it and sufficiently communicate that. And that is what I think, last night I also said it here in Belgrade. For a very long time, we were using the motto that the heritage world, we are giving a future to our past. And I think it's time that we reverse the narrative. We are giving a past to our future. We are future-oriented organizations, but because we have believed that we cannot have a future, in any case, we cannot have a prosperous, peaceful, or more sustainable future if we do not have our past. because we can learn so much about that. We can learn about lessons not to be repeated, but we can also learn about a very important issue about traditional materials, traditional way of life, also intangible heritage that will accompany us in this fundamental transformation of our society, of our economy, of our attitudes towards the planet and the environment that we have to do. So just, don't be afraid, just engage. There are plenty, and it was just in a nutshell, but as I mentioned, also the European Heritage Alliance, where we have a European, so the European level networks coming together. We have a network of young heritage professionals and, many opportunities to get engaged and to become empowered and enriched by our joint action.
Thanks a lot, Snezka. This was very much needed. This speech, this talk that you had. I agree on the underused resource of heritage for this togetherness. And I agree also that we are part of the climate and green transformation, and this must be enhanced. So your words were really heartfelt. I think it's important to capture these emotions, this surprise, this harmony, this feelings, to convince not only the mind but also the heart of the people. And this is also the transformative power of cultural heritage and also of your words. So thanks a lot. And there are some questions in the chat, but I would suggest now to just have 5 minutes break and to rejoin at exactly 3. Thanks a lot.
Christina, I'm afraid that I will not be able to stay unless there are you think that there will be some question afterwards, because we are now working on these meetings in May. So I just want to greet you, unless, you want after the break to have some conversations.
Okay, well, there was one question here in particular that I'm seeing, that is, how do we connect from Cecile, how do we connect and ensure synergy between and within the networks, the related circles and projects? So it was more questions on the governance and specifically the governance of decentralized networks. So this was a specific question that came in this moment. So in case perhaps if you need to leave, we just will discuss among ourselves after the little break.
But I think indeed in the picture that I have given, it's indeed a lot of circles that can cross each other. It's not, definitely they should not be separate and in isolated work, but it is, not be afraid of imaginative constructions. I think, the more creative you are, the better it is. So I leave you now, and of course with also fully endorsing, and I don't know whether I was very clear about that, for us, Europe, the whole of Europe, La Grande Europe, and Europe connected with the rest of the world. That's why we're happy to work with ICLEI, which is the global network. Like climate.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Bye. Bye. And we meet in 2-3 minutes again. Thanks a lot. Just a glass of water. Bye, Snezka. Bye. Thank you. So, welcome back. I hope you're all here. We are now going to go more in depth into Be.Cultour, our Be.Cultour pilots. And indeed, the Be.Cultour community of practice is focused on 6 pilot heritage sites that have developed their action plans and concept solutions for sustainable cultural tourism and are working to inspire a new innovative dynamic between cultural heritage, communities, and tourism. And today we have here 2 representatives, and I would like to give the floor first to Antonio Nicoletti, Director General of the Regional Agency for the Territorial Cultural Promotion of Basilicata region in Italy. And the Basilicata region, hello Antonio, welcome, is a very rich region in natural, historical, cultural and human resources. Although perhaps the cultural tourism sector at the regional level is not fully and yet well established. It's also a region more remote, with low population density. But could you please tell us how does Europeanization mean in your territory, and how cultural and natural assets in your territory have this European value that we were discussing about?
Yes, I will. Thank you very much. I thank you, and also thank you for hosting me, to invite me to tell you something about our region and our role in Be.Cultour project with our pilot heritage site activities, which are framed in the action plan that Be.Cultour project has developed in our Basilicata region. I would like to share the screen for showing you a PowerPoint presentation. Let me check if I'm able to do that. I was thinking on how to fit my my speech today with the topic of the today webinar, understanding the European value of cultural heritage. So I was reflecting on the importance of translations of European values in terms of linking together cultural heritage and what Europe means for us nowadays. But first of all, let me share with you a picture of where the Basilicata region is. It is in southern Italy. It is the ankle of the boot. So the ankle is a part of the body which is very useful for walking, for movement. When you go to a geographical area, the ankle is something which has been historically very important for movement of people, for trades, for connections. So when you see here in the picture the orange circle, that is our pilot heritage site, which is the Vulture Alto Bradano area, and the 2 lines are Appia Road and Herculia Road, 2 very important roads since Roman Empire. These are roads which are not connecting places, but they connect time. They work across time, and they can bring to us values that are also linked to Europe and what Europe means today. So if you think of how small this place is compared to the map of Europe, I can tell you that this area, Vulture in particular, has been the center of Europe in a certain time of human history. I'm telling you the era of Frederick II, the emperor, who settled in the city of Melfi, his capital. In Melfi Castle, which is the one that you see here in the picture, in Melfi Castle, he wrote and promulgated the first document of laws in modern era. the constitutions of Melfi. So at that time, this very enlightened sovereign, this emperor, who was famous even at that time for how interested he was into arts, culture. He knew different languages. He worked for the connection of people and cultures all across the empire, and even together with other people like Arab people in the Mediterranean areas. So he was very innovative. We can say even nowadays, he is a very contemporary figure in terms of capacity of looking forward and connecting and being open to dialogue among cultures. So when I talk about translations of value, I will show you what the values are, how the values are shrunk into symbols. In this photo, you see a crypt which is in the city of Melfi. And here you can see a fresco, a painting, where the Emperor Frederick II, holding the symbol of a hawk that he has in his hand, is facing the deads. This was a Catholic crypt. So he is depicted with his symbol, which is the hawk. He was also very fond of hunting with hawks. So the hawk is a symbol of the Emperor Frederick II. And here the values are translated into the most powerful man of the time facing the temporary being of mankind towards the dead. Now what we are doing also in the action plan of Be.Cultour project is working on the translation of values through symbols.
Oops.
Just means also the way we talk. Can you hear me? It's okay, Christina?
Yes, you're now back.
Okay.
It was just a moment.
Okay. So we are using the symbol of the hawk and the symbol of Frederick II to talk about values of cultural values and the meaning of European Union as well. We are using paintings and works of art to tell tourists, to tell citizens how since the 13th century there was someone envisioning the unity of Europe as a community of population, different people, different cultures held together through constitutions, through rules, and also through the connection and the exchange of cultures. This is something that we can, if we don't tell this story, we are weaker in the building of Europe and the translation of the values of Europe, and also to tourists and to our citizens. We see what I'm saying not only in our projects, in our books and in our publications. Also, we look also what I'm saying also in crafts, for instance, as you can see here, that our craftsmen and artists do. The dish that you see here is a ceramic painted by an artist, a craftsman in Matera, and he describes a scene where Frederick II is in his court, not only with Normans, but also with the Ottomans, with Arabs. His court was a place of communication among cultures, of acknowledgement of the importance of the other people, diverse by them. And ceramics is a tool of communication since the time of Frederick II. This is a ceramic in the Museum of Melfi. from 13th century. And ceramics actually is a language that is used since Old Greek. When we go to books and to stories that can be told, we can take stories, figures, symbols from what the history has given to us across centuries and across time. And we can translate these symbols, translate these values into something which are languages understood by everyone nowadays, like comics. This is a picture that is a story based in Melfi with Frederick II, who says to people nowadays that culture is something that has to be meaningful for the improvement of the world, not for a selfish objective. Across the translation, through the translation of values, we can make a change, even in tourism, for going forward to promote what are European values. And this is just a suggestion based on what we are doing in Basilicata region, in southern Italy, also inside our community of Be.Cultour project. So thank you very much. I stop sharing if I don't know how to stop sharing the video. I'm sorry.
You managed, I think. Not yet, but thanks a lot. Yes, you managed.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I really like this connection between the values, the translation of these values, the symbols, and how they go into a contemporary language. I think this is very important, and how this makes a clear and meaningful link with the European history and the European culture. And also the Frederick II, I think, really represents, according to what you explained, a real local cultural heritage, which creates with this link with the Europeanizations we were referring to at the start of the webinar. So thanks a lot. And
thank you very much.
I would like to welcome Pauline Alexopoulos from Larnaca and Famagusta District Development Agency in Cyprus. And the pilot area of Larnaca has indeed a legacy of 100 years of diverse civilization and cultures that have left a big mark today. Of course, Larnaca as such suffers from seasonality and overexploitation, but the rural areas remain also what we learned in Be.Cultour, underexploited and inaccessible. So, Pauline, welcome. And could you explain which resources also in your territory have a European value, you think? Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Everything was well said already by you. Thank you. Good afternoon to all of you, and thank you for joining this webinar today. I will now present to you our own experience on the Europeanization of cultural heritage, as well as the power of networks throughout the project. First of all, let me travel you to our beautiful island, Cyprus, and more specifically to our area, Larnaca, which is the Cyprus' oldest soul. It is actually the longest continually inhabited region of the island, with a history that dates back 10,000 years. Hundreds of years of contrasting civilizations, architecture, and culture have left their mark on what was always been one of Cyprus' most important and diverse regions. As I already mentioned, our area has a history that dates back 10,000 years. As you can see in our slide, our history starts with the pre-Neolithic era, and Larnaca is actually one of the few places in Cyprus that can show evidence of life during the pre-Neolithic period. Also, you can see that we have been occupied by a lot of different civilizations. We had Romans, Arabs during the Byzantine area. Also, we had the Frankish kingdom, the Venetians, Ottomans, and English, which all of them left a mark on our cultural heritage. This is also evident in our daily life, architecture, customs, stories, and myths. In the next slide, we can see the map of Larnaca district with all the cultural and natural assets. Our pilot area, which is within the circle, is called Orini, or Mountainous Larnaca. It consists of 18 small villages with a population of approximately 8,000 in total. In the next slide, we will highlight some of the most important issues that the tourism industry faces in our pilot area. During the peak season from June to August, there is a high demand for water and electricity and other utilities, leading to pressure on natural resources. To address this issue, sustainable resources management and adaptation of circular economy principles are required. In addition, we still notice a low level of digitalization, innovation, and skills. This actually can limit the competitiveness of the destination and negatively impact its growth. Moreover, the issues highlighted in the slide can collectively lead to dark spots on the destination's image, which can have a negative impact on its overall reputation and tourist inflow. These issues collectively impact the competitiveness and growth of the destination and call for a need of sustainable resource management, greater collaboration among stakeholders, and investment in digitalization and innovation. Going to the next slide, we will share our view of Europeanization in rural Larnaca. As it is generally established, the Europeanization refers to the process of European integration and the adoption of European values, norms, and policies in different aspects of society, such as politics, economics, culture, and society. In the context of rural Larnaca, Europeanization could mean the implementation of EU policies and programs to promote sustainable development, social inclusion, and environmental protection in the region. For example, Europeanization involves the establishment of rural development programs that support local farmers and promote the use of sustainable agricultural practices. For our region, Europeanization is related to the implementation of environmental policies that aim to protect the natural resources and biodiversity of the area. Additionally, Europeanization could involve initiatives that promote cultural diversity and support the preservation of local traditions and customs. Overall, Europeanization in rural Larnaca could be seen as a way to improve the quality of life for local residents, while also promoting the region's economic and social development, always in a sustainable and inclusive manner. However, it is important to note that the extent and impact of Europeanization in the area would depend on various factors, such as the local priorities, capacities, and challenges, as well as the effectiveness of EU policies and instruments. There are several resources in rural Larnaca that have European value, including agricultural resources. This sector is an important part of the rural economy in Larnaca, and many of agricultural practices and products have European value. For example, the production of olive oil, wine, and traditional Cyprus products, such as halloumi cheese, are already recognized as valuable products throughout Europe. Also, the human resources are a critical component for Europeanization, as they are essential for the effective implementation of EU policies and programs in rural areas. Human resources include people with the knowledge, skills, and expertise required to implement Europeanization initiatives and to ensure that the sustainability and success. With regards to natural resources, our pilot area is home to several natural resources that have European value, including Oroklini Lake, which is a designated Natura 2000 site, and due to its importance for migratory birds, as well as a significant wetland habitat. In addition, we have the cultural resources, Our area is rich in tangible cultural resources that have European value, including the traditional architecture. And the villages in mountainous Larnaca have preserved their traditional architecture, including stone-built houses and narrow streets. The district has also several archaeological sites, including the Hirotitiya Neolithic settlement, as well as museums, which showcase the history and culture of the area. Rural Larnaca is also known for its intangible cultural resources, such as the traditional crafts, such as weaving, pottery, silversmithing, basketry. All these are recognized at the European and international level already. The area has a rich tradition of folk music and dance, which are performed at local festivals and celebrations, in addition to its unique culinary heritage, with dishes that include locally grown ingredients such as olives, honey, and carrot. Overall, the combination of these resources contributes to the European value of rural Larnaca and highlights the importance of preserving and promoting these resources for the benefit of both local residents and visitors. In our next slide, we will briefly present how networking is essential for Europeanization, as it helps to establish and maintain connections between different actors, organizations, and communities at the local, national, and European levels. Networking can facilitate the exchange of ideas, knowledge, and experiences, and foster collaboration and cooperation among different stakeholders, which is crucial for the implementation of EU projects and policies. Entering a network can provide several benefits, including access to information, resources, and funding opportunities, as well as opportunities to learn from others' experiences and to share your own. By entering a network, you can establish relationship with other individuals and organizations that share common interests and objectives, and together you can work towards achieving common goals. Moreover, networking can help you to promote the visibility and recognition of your work and initiatives, which is essential for raising awareness about the value of Europeanization and promoting its benefits among different audiences. Overall, networking is crucial for Europeanization as it helps to build bridges between different actors, promote collaboration and cooperation, and foster the exchange of ideas and knowledge, which are all essential for achieving sustainable and inclusive development in rural areas. Thank you for your attention and for listening to our vision on the Europeanization of cultural heritage. I hope you have the chance to visit us and experience the authenticity of our area and our people. Thank you again.
Thanks, Paulina. This was a very extensive presentation, and you also referred a lot to the skills, I mean, the intangible heritage. So this basket weaving, the dry stone, the pottery, the lacework. And I think that now the heritage sector is dealing with a kind of skills shortage. And it's important this year, that is the European Year of Skills. So how to keep this expertise in the traditional heritage crafts before actually to pass them on to the new generation before the current generation actually retires. So I think you touched on also a very important theme. So with this, we conclude. I thank you very much, and we conclude the round of presentations. We have at this point 5 minutes, and we have one question that has been partially responded by Snezka about how to connect and ensure synergies between and within the different network. Is there any other speaker that wants to step in giving its overview on this question that is in the chat? So how to connect between the different networks and their related circles and projects. Nobody? Gerald, perhaps? I see you there.
Yeah, I was thinking, should I go for it? But yes, I will. I think we had, yes, as you mentioned, our conference, and we was a little bit praised for the point that we tried to include the project in our own project, to connect with them, to learn from that. And I think it's very much the same as for the networks. You cannot do everything on your own. You need the support and the strength of networks. And even the networks could have a chance, and it makes sense that they work together. As Snežka was mentioning about the hub, it's more or less a helping point, let me say it in that way, for this connection of the networks. Because I don't know exactly where I wrote it, but it was written, we can only protect our cultural heritage together. So we have to share, to learn from each other, to learn from best practice projects, and to do everything to transfer the skills, the required traditional skills, to the future generation. And you mentioned me as the master trainer of the European Heritage Academy. That's absolutely the purpose, the main purpose of the academy. We started it because for the built cultural heritage sector, the construction, traditional construction skills like masonry, roofer, and so on, and plumber, whatever you need for a building, it's exactly already in the situation that we are in danger that we lose them. So, for instance, we in Greece we identified for several professions, like I think it's called. I forget the name the name of this profession in English, but we have, for instance, professions in Austria we don't have anymore. Luckily, our British friends said we had enough of them, so we can send you over some. But this is still also a topic for networks as well, to say how we can exchange about where we still have some traditional crafts we need. And of course, we have also to do our best to support the protection of that. And even for this topic, there are networks already available and working.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think this can respond in addition to what Snežka said to the question in the chat. I don't see other questions at the moment. I think that if we go back to the concept of cultural Europeanizations we were referring to at the start of this webinar, what I understood from the intervention is that it's not too much an attempt to unify the diversity of the European cultures, but it's more the embracing the common history, these values that you were referring to, the cultural diversity, to increase then a sense of belonging. So it's more a bottom-up process that allows the community to also bring forward their own objectives. And in this, perhaps we can say that culture, art, and heritage can somehow empower European communities to imagine and realize some their futures that are more sustainable and climate related. So again, what we were saying, we should focus and shift. We learned also from Yermina, from an inward focus towards an outward looking approach, which also finds new ways and new dynamics between the cultural heritage, the communities, and the tourism. So I think that, oh, thank you for the name, yes. It's 15:30. I think we are now approaching the end of this webinar. I would really like to thank you so much, both the speakers and the attendees. for active contributing. And I think this session has been stimulating, of course, with so much expertise and experience around the table. This was, of course, the result. And I think that the next webinar, entitled Innovative Solutions for Circular Cultural Tourism, will take place on the 21st of April. So please register for this webinar to find out what are innovative solutions and what we mean with circular cultural tourism. And once again, thanks a lot, and all the best, and goodbye from my side.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.